G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. This episode, we're going to pull everything out of the front end so I can give this front axle a birthday. We've got paint, lockers, we've got new bearings, we've got some mods to do to make some things stronger as well. So hang around for that. Let's get into it. If you watched the last episode, you know that I was waiting for the engineer to come and have a look at the work I'd done so far before I went through and fully welded it out. So he's really happy with everything. He did notice a few similarities between the Ironhide kit and my design, which is fair enough. I have taken quite a few cues from Ironhide's sort of designs. He did make a suggestion, which is an idea I liked and something I had rattling around in my head as well, to actually throw a brace off the backside of the coilover tower and the engine mount to add a bit of stiffness to that area. So I'll show you what I did there later on in the video. But now the engineer's been, we're right to go ahead and pull it all apart, weld it all out, get it all ready to put back together for the last time. Here's the setup. All this gear has to end up in or on this housing. So going through the list here quickly, diff bracing kit from PSR. It's got a little bit of a truss underneath, and obviously we've got the ends on there to brace the balls. That's the main reason I wanted it for. I can't really understand, like, leave a comment down below if you can explain it to me, but I don't really understand the need, especially on a touring vehicle. Maybe for race applications I can understand it, but an actual truss inside of the loading points, where the inside of this point here where the bump stops or the coilovers are, I really don't understand the need to have any big massive trusses, because all the load, as far as I can understand it, is from this point outwards. So that's why you really want to brace the CV ball on the housing itself. Diff guard as well. We've got, obviously, probably most people seen that box before or have an idea what's in there. So ARB air locker. We've got a rebuild kit, so all new bearings, seals, as well as a solid pinion spacer. Swivel hub kit, so give it a bit of a birthday with that. New axle seals, bearings, wheel bearings, everything in there. We have the Marks adapter ABS kit. And then we've got a new set of freewheeling hubs. ASIN freewheeling hubs. I always use ASIN ones. I've never heard too many good things about the AVM ones, so just stick with ASIN, the OEM style sort of hub, freewheeling hub. Also have the sway bar cross member here. I've decided just to cut and shut a few sections where it's close to the radiator, because the majority of it clears. It's just a few sections that are quite close. So I'll just cut out small sections and then do it on the bench. It's obviously a lot easier doing it on the bench than it is on the car. All right, let's get into it. So this isn't going to be a how to rebuild your front axle. There's plenty of other videos on the internet that already do that. What I am going to try and do is just show you that things that you would do that's different to a normal rebuild, because there is going to be some differences, mainly installing the Marks kit. Going through the solid pinion spacer, maybe there is some differences there. Just drop the nut. That'll be the last time that happens. I'll show you any upgrades I'll do as well. I don't know if I'm going to do a 10mm stud upgrade. These studs here in the front look to be 8mm. I know in the past with other land crews I've upgraded these from 8mm to 10mm using a cap screw. So you basically drill out the hub to take a 10mm bolt, you get rid of the Jesus washers, and you put in the tapered locking washers, and you just put a straight 10mm screw in. Don't know if we're going to do that yet.
Hard to see, but if you look closely, you can see there's about 30 or 40 years of grease, mud, dirt inside this diff housing, which I want to get out. So I had a few ideas that I wanted to try out, but they were all going to be messy. Originally I'd planned to paint the housing with a 2-pack paint, then changed my mind last minute to use Raptor coating. It worked out alright. I wouldn't use the Schultz gun again, I'd just put it straight into a regular spray gun. Once the Raptor coating was all dry, I decided to give it a really good gurney out to make sure I got any last grease and any grit from the sandblasting out of the housing. You definitely don't want any sandblasting grit in there with the bearings and diff gears at all, so good chance to get it all out now. In between working on the housing, I was actually sneaking back into the shed doing some welding. There was quite a bit of welding to do, but obviously you don't want to watch all of it, so enjoy the short montage and just trust me when I say there was quite a bit of welding to do. Talked about this in the last episode. The engineer actually sort of suggested that having rubber bump stops as well as the hydraulic bump stops was a good idea. So I had to go through and make up some mounting plates for the rubber bump stops. And while I was going through welding everything up, now is a good time to get that all on the chassis ready to go. Once everything was welded up, it was time to get the locker installed into the centre. Got a new set of bearings and a solid pinion spacer to install as well. Now I won't be going through and giving any tips on how to do any of this because this is the first time I've done a locker install or a gear set swap by myself. I've had mates help me in the past or do it for me in the past. I've watched videos on it, but I am by no means an expert. I will probably show you some things I really struggle with and the way I overcame them. So if you are having a crack at it yourself, you might avoid some of the pitfalls that I faced, but definitely don't use me as an example of how to install an air locker. The first problem I had was trying to get the main pinion bearing off the pinion itself. There is a correct tool for this. It's a bearing puller. I went and bought one, and the one I bought, it didn't fit. So I had to come up with something else, and what you're watching now is what I came up with. Did it work well? Not really. It didn't. But it worked eventually, and with a bit of persistence. But not how I'd recommend doing it, but in a pinch, it does work doing it this way. The second major drama I had was getting the pinion bearing race into the centre housing. For whatever reason, it just would not go in square for me. The only way I could get it to go in was actually by putting the bearing race in the freezer. And once I did that, it pretty much fell straight in and was very easy, which I had done that an hour prior to mucking around with it for so long. So, hot tip, put the bearing race in the freezer. The third issue I had was when it came time to install the air supply to the air locker itself. There's two O-rings on the inside of that air supply. You can see here I'm oiling it up, doing everything I'm supposed to. Try to wiggle it on, it's very firm obviously, you want to make sure it stays airtight, otherwise that's what leaks. I wasn't holding my tongue right and I pinched one of the seals. So obviously not much point going on from there. I had to wait until I could get into town on a weekday and pick up some new O-rings. They're quite cheap. If it was me, I bought some spares. So when I do the rear one, I've got some spare ones. They should be the same. Apparently they're supposed to be the same seal. So another hot tip, if you're doing an air locker install for the first time, maybe grab a spare set of seals so you don't have to wait until Monday to get another set.
So up in there, you can see here, this is a suggestion from the engineer to help stiffen up the coilover tower. It was a good idea. It's something I sort of also had rattling around in my head. So I agreed. There's, you can see that bit of RHS going from the engine mount up onto the backside of the coilover tower to help give it some stiffness, because we can't do a brace over the top. We haven't got room between the intercooler and the bonnet. So that is the solution to give a bit more stiffness to the coilover tower. I've also welded a thick rib. I don't know if you can see it in the footage there, but a thick rib horizontally across the backside of the coilover tower to just give that area a bit more stiffness when we're hitting big bumps. Should work nicely. All right, so I've decided to do the hub stud upgrade. The idea is that you put some 10mm cap screws in, so they're a lot higher grade. I've actually ordered some 12.9. A normal stud is either 8.8 or 10.9. Plus the 10mm cap screw, you can actually tighten them down a lot further. So a lot higher torque spec. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but basically the idea is that the tighter you can do these studs up, the stronger it'll be. You can buy ARP studs that designed to do this. They're still only 8mm. You can torque them up higher, but I think this way is probably stronger and obviously a lot cheaper as well, which is all good, which is what we want. So as you can see here, I'm taking these studs out. These basically bolt the freewheeling hub to the wheel hub. This is where your wheel bolts here. That's your wheel mounting surface there. So the idea is that these holes here, these 6 holes will get drilled out to suit a 10mm fine thread for a 10mm cap screw. Cap screws are a higher grade, stronger bolt generally than a standard bolt or stud. It's not because it's thicker, it's not getting loaded in the shear force, like rotationally. It's actually providing more clamping force, which is where you get the strength from. So the tighter you can clamp the freewheeling hub down onto the wheel hub, the stronger it'll be. There is upgrades you can get that will put more dowels into the setup, but that's not how it's getting loaded. The dowels, these 6mm dowels are just to locate the wheel hub essentially, the freewheeling hub. So those dowels aren't actually taking any load. Well, that's my theory anyway. If they were, they wouldn't last very long. Put the brake rotor on so I've got a nice flat surface to drill with. as you can see, I had to remove quite a bit of material from the swivel hub to clear the bracket. It's just a matter of test fitting it, taking it on and off, mocking it up. I was a bit worried about how much material I was removing, but as you can see here, for a bit of comparison, that's the unmodified. You basically got to take that corner off, and there is quite a bit of material under there. It doesn't follow that casting, so plenty of material there. Fair bit of grinding though. Budget update time. So going through the previous total from the last episode was everything up so far, ran out of room on the board. So up to then was 13,430. So basically in the front axle here, in the front end, this episode we've spent about $1,300 on a brand new ARB air locker. The brace kit was $265. For that money, it's not worth spending probably 4 or 5 hours fabricating and designing and making all that sort of stuff. So for me, it's worthwhile spending that sort of money to do it, and you know it's going to fit and it's going to look good. The ABS kit, the Marks Adapter ABS kit, $350. The diff kit and the solid pinion spacer to rebuild the actual center, the bearings and all that, was $270. The swivel hub and the wheel bearing kit to do the outers and all that was $350. Brake calipers, rotors, pads, all that was about $700. The spindles, the spindles were buggered. No, they weren't buggered, they were a bit rusty and a bit of pitting on it, so I thought, you know, for what I'm going to be doing with it, I would like some new ones, so that was $420 for those, some aftermarket ones of them. The freewheeling hubs, $300. Consumables, grease, oil, silicone, that sort of stuff, I estimated to be around $200. Chassis black, for what we painted on the chassis, was $80 for 4 litres from Supercheap. And the Raptor coating, I actually bought a kit, a full, like a 4-bottle kit, because I'll be using it probably throughout the rest of the build. It was a bit cheaper to buy that way instead of individually, but for individual bottles, about $100. So all up, that brings the total to $17,765. So it is getting up there, but not really sparing any expense here. So it's going to be a good thing when it's all done, but it is getting expensive. That's it for this episode, guys. Next episode, I'm not too sure what I'm going to do yet, whether I'm going to go on with the front end in terms of sump, power steering lines, brake lines, that sort of thing, or move on to a bit of a side adventure, side challenge here, so maybe front bar and winch. I might move on to that part next. But I'll figure that out in the next few weeks. Until then, thanks for watching.